Hello everyone, my name is Brian Andrew Akeem, and today I'm going to be giving my goodbye, or I guess farewell to Fear the Walking Dead, the television show, the spinoff from AMC's The Walking Dead main show. So, honestly, when I started Fear the Walking Dead back in 2015, I really enjoyed the series. You know what I mean? I was very excited. I thought it had a lot of potential. I missed what the show could have been. The show could have been a lot better in Dave Erickson's vision. So, basically, I'm just going to go over the entire show, and this is going to be my last video, I would say, for the Fear the Walking Dead series. You know what I mean? And I want to thank you all for supporting my videos with Fear the Walking Dead that I've done, all my streams, but I don't think I'm going to do those ever again. And also, guys, this is going to be a very long review, so I want to let you all know that because, yeah, just buckle in because, yeah, this is going to be quite a ride that we're going to be taking with Fear the Walking Dead. All right, so first off, let's start with the big thing. All right, where are you, Dumb and Dumber? No, not you guys. No, not you guys either, but close. Alright, there you guys are. Alright, so Ian Goldberg and Andrew Chambliss. Honestly, you guys are the worst writers I've ever seen ever in my life. Like, seriously, you guys are terrible showrunners, you're terrible writers. You went to, like, you went to writing school for years, got a degree, and this is how you do it. And some people will say, oh, well, they wrote Once Upon a Time. Well, Once Upon a Time, Fear the Walking Dead was a very good show. In fact, it was actually even doing better than The Walking Dead main show season 7 and season 8. It was actually the top Walking Dead property because The Walking Dead Telltale games were also doing terrible. And what did E and Andy do? They did the impossible. They made the worst Walking Dead property. They took an amazing franchise, amazing characters, amazing story, and they ruined all of it. And I'm going to be discussing how they did that. So first, we need to go back to the very beginning. So the very beginning, Fear the Walking Dead that premiered in 2015. The first season of Fear the Walking Dead with the whole outbreak, the Clarks, the Manawas, Travis and his family, was a very interesting story. I actually very much liked it. There was so much to like about season 1. Season 1 had some problems, but it was the beginning of the outbreak. The trailer was amazing. It had a decent cast, and it had a lot of potential. And there were some things we got to see that we never got in the Walking Dead main show. And was Fear the Walking Dead season 1 perfect? No, it wasn't. But it was still decent. And the show just started and had so much potential. Now we go on to Fear the Walking Dead Season 2. Now, honestly, Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 was not a good season. It was very mediocre, but I will say that there were some things I liked. And one thing I want to bring up is, look at the posters for, the Fear the Walking Dead. Season 1 poster, not bad. Season 2 poster, pretty good, not bad. Season 2 was very slow with the Abigail stuff, but overall, Season 2, even though some things didn't make sense, there was still that awesomeness with the Clark family and Travis was becoming a much better character. And then we have Fear the Walking Dead Season 2 B poster, and look at this, the death knows no borders. I mean, that is a really awesome poster with all the zombie hands and the skull. That looks amazing. And 2B was a little bit mess here and there, but Travis really developed as a character, among other things like Alicia, developing as a character, killing her first human. So yeah, 2B of The Walking Dead had some writing issues, but overall, the characters were still very well done, in my personal opinion. And then Season 3. So look at this poster right here for the Season 3 poster of Fear the Walking Dead first half. This is a fantastic seasonal poster. I mean, my goodness, how awesome does it look? I mean, honestly, Fear the Walking Dead 3A was very good. Season 3 was the best season of Fear the Walking Dead by far. And next poster we have is 3B, Fear What You Become. So this was honestly not just a very good poster. I like how Nick kind of looks like this Joker character. This is what Fear the Walking Dead was. It was about the Clark family. They were the main characters. Nick was this cool. That's cool about Fear. Fear the Walking Dead is great because it's not predictable. It doesn't go by a comic book and like the Walking Dead main show, and that was just one of the things. It felt like we were following a group of villains, and I really liked that. That was very fresh and awesome. So then we get to the bad parts. Now, this is a good poster. Season 4, 4A, this is a good poster. Morgan looks a little silly, but Madison looks awesome. Alicia looks awesome. The poster looks good, and Morgan looks okay. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh my goodness, we're going to see Madison and Morgan interact. This is going to be amazing. Did that happen? No. 4A was actually a good first half of the season. The problem is Fear the Walking Dead died as soon as they killed off Madison, and this is how it happened. So here we have the 4B poster, and look at this. How terrible does this look? How cringy does this look with the storm and all the characters together? There's too many characters. It's a whole mess. Look at Morgan taking up all that space. Fear the Walking Dead was a great show, but then they completely ruined it by having Lenny James, Morgan, take over the show and completely push the Clarks out. This was a terrible idea, and Scott Gimple and Ian and Andy should be ashamed of themselves for this terrible decision. And then, oh boy, then we get Fear the Walking Dead Season 5. What is Alicia doing? She looks like she's jumping from the wing of the plane to kill some zombie or something. What is Strand doing? Looks like he's jumping out of the plane to shoot a zombie. Nothing makes sense. John Dory looks stupid in this poster. I mean, it's just terrible. Season 5 was terrible. The characters helping people and all this stuff while making idiotic decisions. This was not a good show. This was not a good story. This was terrible writing. And then we have Fear the Walking Dead Season 5B poster, and oh my goodness, this looks terrible. And once again, what is this? What is Alicia doing? What is Luciana doing? Everything looks so bad. Everything looks terrible. Look at this. There's too many characters. There's too many characters in this poster. Alicia and Luciana and Althea, they have to kind of jump in the air because there's not enough room for them, even though they were in the show before some of these other characters. It's just absolutely ridiculous. They had Dwight come in, and yeah, it's just a whole mess. And then we had Fear the Walking Dead Season 6, and this is when the show was starting to get a little bit good again, I will admit. The Past is Dead with Morgan with the red eyes. The problem is they never explained what was up with that. They never explained why Morgan had the red eyes, and it is a serious plot hole in the show. That is, why did Morgan have red eyes? Why did he not die from the, cliffhanger from season 5? It just doesn't make sense. But 6A was a good season, half a season. And then here we have the 6B poster, and this was actually pretty good. We got to see Alicia and the whole end is the beginning and Morgan there. I actually like this poster. It was pretty good. Alicia having more of a focus. I'm like, yes, Alicia is finally going to take back her show. And I'm like, yes, I agree with this. And there were some episodes in season 6B that I actually really enjoyed. And I'm like, yes, Fear the Walking Dead is actually becoming good. And then they ruin it with that terrible cliffhanger and the terrible nuke payoff. And then we get season 7. Oh my goodness. Oh, this season was so bad. Look at the poster. It looks like Strand and Morgan are on the toilets, and they are in pain, serious agonizing pain, and they're staring at each other in the face, screaming in each other's faces. That's what this looks like, because Morgan and Strand did not fight each other in the first half. This is false advertising. It's so terribly done. This poster is terrible. It just doesn't make any sense. Season 7 was terrible. And then now, look at 7B's poster. You have Alicia, and behind her are two giant old men head statues. Yes, Strand and Morgan look like they're not even human. They look like they're giant head statues. And once again, okay, first off, Alicia is, not even really involved in the war with Strand or Morgan that much this second half. And Strand and Morgan don't even face off in the second half, really. So this was once again false advertising. I mean, so yeah, now I'm going to go over season 7, why season 7 was the last straw for me in Fear. And yeah, so, the premiere of season 7 was actually a pretty good episode. We had the horses, we had the radiation, it was fresh. Will was a pretty interesting character. Strand and the whole villain stuff, it was new, refreshing, and I'm like, okay, I hope they don't milk this, but this is kind of interesting. This was actually a pretty decent episode, and I did like it. The writing kind of fell on point. And then we had episode 2, 6 hours. This was a terrible episode. We had baby Morgan crying the entire episode. This baby somehow does not starve to death, even though in real life, babies would die after 2 or 3 hours from not having food, not having milk. Grace is being a total selfish and unlikable character in this episode, and Morgan somehow builds a Ghostbusters car. Everything is just so poorly done. Howard teleports, and just everything. He does that in the other episode too, and I cannot stand it. And then we have episode 3, Sydney Hawkins. This was also another terrible episode because, let's see, they focused on 2 characters, and John Sr. is just haunted, and he wants to find this girl's body from like 30, 40 years ago or something, and remind you, it doesn't matter during the nuclear apocalypse, nothing matters, and they just randomly find her body in the wall. Nothing makes sense in the story. The characters get knocked out and they get teleported to Strand's tower. It's just absolutely terrible. I just cannot stand it. And then we have episode 4, Breathe With Me, a Sarah-focused episode. Oh my goodness, they bring back Josiah, Emil's twin brother, and then Rufus gets killed off in a stupid way. Sarah tries to find her brother Wendell, and then she finds out he's in the tower. Yes, this character who is in a wheelchair in a zombie apocalypse survived nuclear bombs going off. This character somehow survived all that. Oh my goodness, it's just terrible. And then we have episode 5, Till Death. Now, this actually was not the worst episode ever, but it had problems. Okay, the Larson family dying. Dwight and Sherry really carried this episode. And then we have the Mickey character, who is never brought back. We had that cringy wrestling scene. Honestly, Fear the Walking Dead has great actors. It's got great zombie, effects, but everything else is just pretty much terrible. The writing is terrible. The plots are terrible. The sets, everything's just terrible with those. And then we have episode 6, Reclamation. So this episode was just a goodbye to Althea episode. This was like her What Comes After. The episode where Rick leaves the story forever. Althea tries to look for her girlfriend who ditched the CRM, and it turns out she leaves the story. Althea is never, Maggie Grace never comes back. This is her last episode. She left the show, and honestly, I don't blame her, because the CRM, even the CRM could not save this episode. And then we have episode 7, The Portrait. Yeah, so this episode was also very terrible. Morgan decides to bring the baby to the tower, even though he's at war with Strand, even though he threatens Strand. And Strand gets poisoned by Morgan. Morgan poisons him, and then Strand's about to kill Morgan, but then Grace is like, no, you can't kill him, you need me. Everything doesn't make sense in this episode. Well, actually, nothing makes sense in this episode. I just cannot stand it. It's pointless. It makes no sense for the story. Moving on. All right, so then we have Padre. So, oh my goodness, I hated this episode for so many reasons. Alicia Clark, the smartest and best character in this entire show, gets bitten in a stupid way. She decides to follow a zombie in a small narrow tunnel with this new guy she just meets, and she gets bit. Because she doesn't use her weapon to kill it, she tries to use a rock. This makes no sense for the story. It makes no sense for the character or the realism. It's just a terrible episode. And then episode 9, Follow Me. Oh look, we get Alicia running away from Arno, that guy, forgettable villain, and then she is hallucinating constantly, and then that guy, Paul, he gets killed off. He plays bagpipes and this and that, and Alicia runs off. Yeah, is there much to say about this episode? Alicia is being chased by someone, and she meets a guy who plays the bagpipes. I mean, there's literally nothing for the story here. Nothing. And then we have episode 10, Morning Cloak. Where Charlie gets a boyfriend and then loses him all in the same episode. Yes, Charlie, the character who killed Nick Clark, one of our fan favorite characters, gets a boyfriend and he dies. Howard teleports. Nothing makes sense in this episode. Radiation is inconsistent, and not only that, but Ali was not an interesting character, and just nothing makes sense at all in this story. It didn't matter. The butterflies, everything was just awful. And then we have episode 11, Ophelia. Once again, nothing makes sense in this episode. The characters talk about, that there's this bag of guns that they need for the war in this, special place with the coordinates. Oh, where did they get that? Daniel, turns out, has dementia. I thought he was faking it in season 6, and that guy, Rolly, was a spy for Teddy. I thought he was setting Daniel up with that whole thing. So that's a little bit weird. That's a little bit confusing. Luciana lies to Daniel, and not only that, Wes leaves to, go to Strand. He betrays them. And, Luciana getting some screen time, that is a plus, I'll admit. But yeah, this episode was just... It just had so many problems. Arno was a forgettable villain. He just died, killed by Daniel. Yeah. And then we have Sonny Boy. So we have Strand and Howard murdering people because they find radios. And then it turns out Baby Morgan is missing. Turns out someone took her. Who could it be? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's June, the most likely person. No, they didn't suspect that. Strand kills Howard, and then John Sr. kills himself when he could have killed Strand and lets a herd of zombies devour him, even though it does nothing for the story or the characters. Nothing makes sense in this episode. It's terrible, and it's atrocious. Moving on, we have The Wrath. Now, this episode was good in some ways. Dwight and Sherry are really saving certain scenes this season because the actors are so amazing. You know, Dwight is a fantastic... Austin Emilio is great as Dwight. You know, he wants to have a baby with Sherry. He finds out she's pregnant. But Wes is a terrible villain. He's not interesting. He's terrible. He is constantly teleporting. Dwight is not a character who should let him live. Dwight should have killed Wes in this episode. Nothing makes sense. It's just awful. After that, we have Divine Providence. And this episode is terrible for so many reasons. Alicia goes to the tower. She has people ready to kill Strand, ready for the war that has been building up all season. And what happens? She goes inside, gets captured, passes out a bunch of times in an elevator, and Strand saves her. He kills Wes, saving her, and then she turns on him. Then she tells everyone to come in the tower, and zombies infest and invade the tower, and everyone has to get inside before they're all killed. And not only that, Strand acts like a complete idiot in this episode because he's a simp for Alicia. That's right. The villain and a character who was established to be gay all the way back in season 2 of the show is now a simp for Alicia. And don't get me wrong, I understand it. Alicia is very lovable. She is a goddess in the zombie apocalypse or even real life. But it doesn't make sense because Strand literally is the villain and is way older than Alicia, and him loving her like this is gross. And before anyone says it's a father-daughter thing, the show did not portray it that way. The writers had to confirm it because they know they showed it romantically. And then after that, we have Amina. And oh boy, this episode. Amina was absolutely terrible for so many reasons. And I'm going to say why. It was Alicia's last episode in the show. It was Alicia's Denham Carey's last episode of the show because the actress got tired. She had other roles to do and she wanted to be in those shows over this one. Alicia passes out a dozen times in this episode. And what does she do? She talks to a younger version of herself who tells her to keep going. She keeps seeing this hallucination of this bird. And if that wasn't bad enough, Alicia decides to go back in the tower that somehow fell from the walkers and the fires. Yeah, you know that cliffhanger that they showed at the end of episode 14? Well, it turns out that didn't matter. It turns out she got saved off screen. And it turns out the tower fell off screen. And it turns out Alicia was taken out of the tower off screen. Everything happens in this episode off screen. Walkers get killed by Alicia's younger self, her 8-year-old hallucination self. Even though, if it's a hallucination, how is that happening? Nothing makes sense in this episode. Alicia finds a SWAT truck. Alicia finds the tower. Nothing makes sense at all. This entire episode was just Alicia, who very much needs a nap and some water, passing out every 5 seconds, and then she magically teleports somewhere else. I think this teleporting is because Ian and Andy are too incompetent to write a realistic way for Alicia to get to her destinations. And also, she tells Strand and them to leave her behind because she might die and turn into a zombie and kill them. And hello, there's Charlie, who is also dying. You know, she has radiation poisoning, and yet she is fine. Like, she can go with them. But no, Alicia has to stay. And I don't understand that. It's idiotic. And I get that this was Alicia's last episode. They had to send her off. But they tried to do it the way they did with Rick, and it failed miserably. They could have done it any other way. They could have had the CRM or something else be involved, you know, because Alicia just going off on her own like this is just idiotic. And it makes no sense for the story and also for the character. Because like I said, it just doesn't make sense. This whole family group is okay with just leaving her. I don't get that one bit. I don't buy it. It makes no sense at all. And because of that, and because this is Alicia's last episode, I'm not going to watch the finale. And some people might say, the finale is when Madison comes back. Well, here's the thing though. I never loved Madison as a character. And 2, she's not going to reunite with Alicia, the last family she has left. Not only that, but I feel like the episode's going to be terrible. And honestly, I think Madison is going to be a villain or something. And even if she is, I would love it if Madison came back in the finale and killed everyone in the group. I hope she kills Morgan, Grace, June, Charlie, Victor, Sarah, Wendell, and everyone else, because I cannot stand them. Now that Alicia's gone, there is literally no likable characters left in the show, minus Dwight, I guess. But other than that, that's pretty much it. The show is going to fail because there's not interesting characters and the writing is terrible. Fear the Walking Dead was an amazing show. You had so much potential in this story. I loved characters like Travis, Alicia, Nick, and even Madison at times. Not just that, but there were some characters who were growing on me, like Jake Otto. The point is, Fear the Walking Dead was amazing for several reasons. One, Fear the Walking Dead took place before the main Walking Dead story, so the walkers were always fresh. There was always new and interesting environments. The characters went from LA to California to Mexico to Texas and so on and so forth. But however, that changed, and the characters instead decided to stay in Texas for literally 4 seasons. These characters stayed in Texas for 4 seasons, moving from community to community, and it's just absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. Fear the Walking Dead was amazing because we were not following a group of people trying to be the good guys. In Fear the Walking Dead, we were following a group of survivors who didn't even care if they had to become the villains. But unfortunately, that has lost its touch. Fear the Walking Dead now is about a bunch of incompetent survivors trying to make up for what they've done. But nothing makes sense about that. The only characters who need to make up for what they've done is Victor and maybe Morgan after All Out War. And I guess Charlie. But that's pretty much it. Everyone else keeps saying they have to make up for what they've done. But they don't have to make up for anything, especially Alicia. Alicia has never really did anything in the zombie apocalypse that was unjustifiable or unforgivable, like Strand did. And speaking of Strand, he was the worst villain I think we've... No, okay, I don't know about that. Maybe Martha, who is literally one of the worst villains in the Walking Dead franchise. But Strand was literally a terrible villain for several reasons. He was goofy and narcissistic. Not only that, but he was full of himself and only kept to his tower. And, I mean, Strand talked about how he, didn't want to bring Alicia to the tower. He wanted to show her everything he did, sort of thing. And he also killed Will because Will loved Alicia, because he also loves Alicia. And then when Alicia sees Will's dead body as a walker, he says, yes, it was me that killed him. Even though he literally stated that, he loves Alicia and wants her in the tower, so why would he tell her that? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Strand was just all over the place as a villain and a character, because like I said, you can't really have the villain be a simp for Alicia. It just doesn't really work. And the sad thing is that Fear the Walking Dead, I feel like, is going to crash and burn. I feel like they're going to keep doing seasons upon seasons, and it's just not going to work out. I feel like Fear the Walking Dead is going to be canceled at some point, and honestly, AMC brought this on themselves. They ignored the fans, and they brought Ian and Andy as the writers for 4 seasons, even though they are incompetent writers. I have never seen writers this incompetent before in Star Wars, in Marvel, in DC, whatever. They have never been this incompetent before. Even Scott Gimple is not this incompetent as Ian and Andy. And it is just so sad that they ruined these characters. Alicia Clark was such a lovable character. She was the Clementine of Fear the Walking Dead. She was up there with Rick, Negan, Glenn, Daryl, Carol, and some of the others of the top characters in the franchise. She literally was putting a name for herself. When people said Fear the Walking Dead, they thought of Alicia. People wanted Alicia to be the main character, but it never happened because Morgan took over the show after Madison died. Before anyone says Madison's not dead, AMC confirmed she was dead years ago back in season 4. They retconned it. They only brought back Madison because Alicia Denham Carey was leaving the show. Now, there are some things I like. For example, Fear the Walking Dead season 6 was very likable, and I did like Teddy as a villain. John Glover is fantastic as the Teddy character. And I did like this concept of a group of doomsday people who want to bring nukes in a zombie apocalypse. That is such an interesting concept. And realistically, if you were able to get access to those weapons, you would be unstoppable. The world would be changed forever. But did the nuke storyline even matter? No, it didn't. The world was not affected. The world was not affected in The Walking Dead or World Beyond. The characters don't even know that nukes happen. it only happened in the state of Texas, and the characters just decided to stay in Texas for an entire season after the nukes, which doesn't make any sense. Now, some people might say, well, how exactly would this have worked? Obviously, the nukes would have happened. Here's the thing, though. The nukes happening is fine, but they never should have had the characters who survived. The season 6 finale is one of the worst things I've ever seen in television, and I freaked out seeing it because that is not how nukes happen in real life. In nuclear explosions, you can't just go under an oil truck and survive it with a baby. Nothing makes sense in Fear the Walking Dead. The realism is gone, the writing is terrible, the characters are ruined and acting stupid. The characters are constantly going through situations where they should become tougher and more deadly in the zombie apocalypse, but instead they're becoming more incompetent and idiotic. Morgan is a terrible leader. Grace is a terrible girlfriend to Morgan, and Morgan is a terrible boyfriend to Grace. These characters are just terrible to each other. They're bad people, no matter how much the show wants me to believe that they're good, because they're not. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Fear the Walking Dead actually makes The Walking Dead Season 7 and 8 look like complete masterpieces. Now, let me remind you guys that this is a season where Jeffrey Dean Morgan was portraying the Negan character. Let me remind you guys, the character that killed Glenn and Abraham, two of our fan favorites. This was a guy who literally kept wives against their will, or okay, maybe not against their will, but they could never leave. So that was also technically against their will. This was a show that also made the Daryl character, unlikable for 2 seasons and made him just, well, I'm going to say it, a terrible character. However, the fact that I'm looking back on this just actually makes me wish I appreciated those seasons more. I actually think season 7 and 8 are complete masterpieces compared to Fear the Walking Dead. Even when The Walking Dead was at its lowest state, it could still not compare. And it's a shame that Lenny James has been ruined by AMC's corporate greed and narcissistic writing. I mean, Lenny James deserved a lot better than this terrible show, and so many of the other actors did as well. It's just sad that AMC did not take their time and listen to fan feedback. I truly believe that Fear the Walking Dead could have been an amazing show if they followed Dave Erickson's vision of 7 seasons total. Like I said before, all these actors are amazing. Also, when I'm making this rant and review, I'm simply stating the facts here. I am not calling out on the actors or actresses. They are amazing. They're doing a fantastic job, and sometimes make the show even somewhat watchable because the scenes that they are in are so amazingly executed because of their fantastic performances. Even when the show is terrible, even when the writing is bad, the actors are the ones who really make the show worth it. It's not the writers. The writers do a terrible job. They don't take the time to establish and relate to these characters towards each other. They don't take the time to understand these characters or realistic situations that the characters would go through. And it is very sad. I certainly hope that things get better. I think it's possible that Fear the Walking Dead could get better in Season 8, but I truly do not believe so. I feel, honestly, that Fear the Walking Dead is just going to keep getting worse and worse, in my personal opinion. I also believe that The Walking Dead is going to continue down this route. I don't believe the main show is going to suffer as much as Fear, but I truly believe that Fear the Walking Dead is going to remain the worst property from the Walking Dead franchise, or at least one of them. Like I said, I want to go back to Fear on this, but Fear is just all over the place. Fear decided to reboot their entire show in the 4th season, and like I said, I wasn't a fan of this crossover idea. I just felt like Morgan leaving everyone he ever loved and cared about, all his friends, even Rick, to go to Texas for his own adventure, it just feels incredibly forced. But however, I was giving Fear a chance in Season 4. Althea was kind of an interesting character, and I did absolutely love John Dory, but they ruined those characters. Morgan is a pacifist, Althea is an idiot with a camera, and John Dory, the only likable character I would say, was killed off way too soon. And not just that, but they brought back and replaced him with his father, and they killed him off as well. And one of the reasons why I cannot stand Fear the Walking Dead is deaths do not matter in the story. For example, when Wes died, his death didn't really matter. And the same with John Dory and John Sr. Character deaths don't really matter too much in the story, which I honestly believe is a huge mistake. With the Walking Dead main show, deaths matter a whole lot more. Glenn's death still has such a large impact, but Nick's doesn't anymore, and it's such a shame. And also, I want to bring this up. One of the reasons why Fear the Walking Dead fails miserably is because there's too many uninteresting and boring characters. Sarah and Wendell are prime examples of this. How the heck does a character in a wheelchair survive in the zombie apocalypse? This character has outlived Glenn. This character has literally lasted longer than Rick, if you think about it, in terms of story and what they went through. I mean, Rick's not dead, but Rick is gone from his story, and this character Wendell is still alive timeline-wise. It just doesn't make sense. Not only that, but like I said, how is this character still alive? When the nukes went off, in the zombie apocalypse, this character is just all over the place. He's on the roof, he's on the ground, this character is in a wheelchair, and I know he's like this in real life, but I honestly don't understand why Fear the Walking Dead did not kill off these characters. They're uninteresting and boring, and I feel like the show would be a lot better. The cast is far too big right now. Also, another thing I noticed in Fear is the budget. The budget is terrible because they're keeping around all these characters from prior seasons. And I feel honestly the show needed to kill off more characters. We needed a Red Wedding or a Pike situation in Fear the Walking Dead, but we never got that. The only deaths we got was John Dory Sr. and Wes, who were very minor characters. I feel like we honestly should have killed a whole bunch of characters, including Strand. And Wes as a villain just came out of nowhere. His arc was so rushed, and it honestly just didn't make sense. He was a minor character who had very little screen time and personality. And now he's a villain and takes over Strand's entire tower group, which, by the way, his tower goes missing. Whatever happened to all of Strand's people? He had hundreds of people, according to Howard, in the premiere of Season 7. And all of a sudden, Howard's was killed off, and all of Strand's people are just gone now. They just disappear and they're missing. Please tell me they didn't throw them all off the roof. Like I said before, nothing really makes sense in Fear the Walking Dead. The writing is all over the place, and every episode is completely different from the other in a bad way. They start off from different points. So, in conclusion, like I said, this review has gone on for way too long, and I think it's probably time to end this. I want to say that Fear the Walking Dead, I missed you when you were good. I feel like, honestly, Fear the Walking Dead is a dumpster fire of a show. I definitely recommend watching the first 3 seasons and maybe the first half of season 4, but stopping completely right then and there. As much as season 6 was good in certain parts, I feel like 4B as well as 5 are just too terrible to get through. And after you get to 6, you're going to enjoy it a little bit, but then you want to see what happens after that. And season 7 is far too atrocious to watch and call it television. And speaking of that, I simply don't understand the writers. How can the writers honestly justify this television? It's not made for consumers. This show is terribly made. Let me just list off some of the plot holes from Ian and Andy's Fear the Walking Dead. Let's see, we have Morgan leaving the state of Virginia to go to Texas, and he comes across Dwight, who also left the state of Virginia to go to Texas because he's looking for Sherry, who, by coincidence, also left Virginia and went to Texas. As if that wasn't bad enough, in season 5, we had the bullet axe split, which was absolutely cringy, as well as the characters using a plane in the most stupid way possible in season 5. As if that wasn't bad enough, Morgan was shot and left to die at the hands of walkers at the end of season 5, and he actually survives, but we don't get to see his survival. Instead, it was just simply off screen, and it turns out it was Dakota who saved him, because AMC did not think of a way how he could have survived that and shown it in a realistic way. Morgan also was impervious to the walkers' attention. The walkers could not notice him because he had the red eyes, but the show never explained it. The show never addressed why the walkers ignored him, and Morgan simply recovered after 1 episode. As if that wasn't bad enough, we had more plot holes in Fear the Walking Dead. We had the nukes going off and every character surviving. The only character realistically that would survive in real life is Alicia, but we had Morgan, Grace, and the baby all surviving and actually being able to retain their hearing by going under an oil truck when the nukes go off. Strand goes in a glass tower and survives. A helicopter picks up all the D-list characters from the CRM and they fly away, even though nukes can outrun helicopters. And as if that wasn't bad enough, we go on to the season 7 plot holes. We have the characters discovering a gun cache, and Arno wants to get it too. As if that wasn't bad enough, we have Strand, who's able to build this Commonwealth Tower place in a few months, even though all the surrounding areas are a wasteland, and he's able to do that all off screen. As if that wasn't bad enough, we have Howard constantly teleporting every single episode, and then after he dies, he gives it to Wes, and then after he dies, somehow Alicia gets it. Not only that, but we have the radiation. It's completely inconsistent because the horses are constantly being used in the story and they're never getting poisoned. We have characters who should be radiated and poisoned, like Morgan, never getting radiation poisoning or whatever. And as if that wasn't bad enough, we have the tower falling off screen and all the characters being able to make it out, minus the nobodies, even Wendell, who is in a wheelchair. And we have the characters all leaving Alicia, which is another plot hole because realistically they would not do that. Honestly, guys, if you want to see a better Fear the Walking Dead story than this, I'm going to do some shout outs right now. So go to Walker Dead Phoenix's reboot Fear the Walking Dead series, where he basically is going to rewrite the entire series from beginning to end, and he's going to do it in 7 seasons in the way that he personally believes the fans deserve to see the story unfold. And there's also The Chosen's Fear the Walking Dead rewrites in Dave Erickson's vision that he does on his channel. So you guys should definitely check that out. I'll put both their links in the descriptions and the links to their channels. And also shout out to Epic Zombie Killer. He is a really cool friend of mine, and I definitely think that he makes some very good points with Fear the Walking Dead. So yeah, guys, in conclusion, I am going to miss Alicia. You know, I am going to miss when Fear the Walking Dead was good. I miss that the show cannot be the way it was. It just hurts me. Yeah, guys, so that's going to be it for my long goodbye, good riddance to Fear the Walking Dead, or I guess you can call it Fart the Walking Dead, or Fear the Walking Trash, whatever you want to call it. The show honestly just failed. It missed its mark big time. It jumped the shark way too many times, and now it's just hanging on by a thread. Very thin thread, because now the best character has left. And honestly, guys, I'm not even going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do Fear the Walking Dead videos or even watch the show anymore, because honestly, I believe other things are worth my time, like my friend's series Foxcars, as well as your guys' reboot series and rewrites. They're definitely way better than what AMC is giving the fans. So yeah, guys, in conclusion, I want to say all of that, and I want to wish you all a good day, and God bless. Bye.